Hey guys, Mark from Gunpla Network here, and today I'm bringing you my review of the RG09 Justice Gundam. So sit back, grab a drink and relax. First up, as always, let's take a look at the inner frame. As you can see, it's spinning in all its 1/144 glory. It's not too far off other RG kits, and similar to the Strike Freedom and Freedom Gundam frames when I was looking around. Looking at the front and back of the frame, you can see it's highly detailed, and I think it's just begging for a paint job, which I probably will after this. The construction was really simple, and I didn't feel like it was going to break at any point when I was flexing it back and forth and testing the joints. Always a good sign. Here he is, all geared up. You gotta love those RG colours. It can actually stand on its own too, but it's kind of cheating. I'm using the wings, or the tips of the wings there. You can kind of see that where they're meeting in the mirror reflection of the base. But it can stand up, that's all I'm saying. I didn't need blue tack or anything else to convince it to stay upright when it was spinning on the base. Onto the accessories, and you do get a few. The big piece here is the backpack stand, for when it's on the ground and standing up with the backpack swung upright. So obviously that was in the down position before. This uses the action base adapter that it comes with for you to put on top and then slide it onto the pack and hold it upright. Obviously it would have been better if it was molded in clear for aesthetics, but it works. Those two pieces now also assist. They're the action base joint and a backpack holding piece. You get two beam saber effect parts with two beam sabers. They're longer than the shield, so always a good length. You can combine these two beam sabers into one for melee combat, having one long, you can hold it in one hand essentially. And as you can see, once you got them though, it's pretty stable. Now, you can position it with either of the tabs. Unfortunately, the tabs are misaligned. The head will come off easy. So you're left with essentially one long beam saber, but you're holding it at one beam saber point instead of the middle. You also get these Basil beam boomerangs on each shoulder that just click in, and they're actually a really stable connection. They're kind of like a beam dagger, and they get a really cool effect part. The only thing that's a drawback on them is you have to use the RG hands. Obviously not the best thing. They don't really hold them that well, even though they're double tabbed. It might have been nice for a separate set of hands. You know, in these days you would probably get two extra hands just for holding those. You get a 1/144 scale highly detailed Athrun Zala figure, molded in red, came off the A-Runner. And just shock primer. And you can panel wash that just for the line effects, or paint him up, which I will do. I'm getting to a stage now where I've done a few RGs and need to paint them all up, so I'll do them in one batch. The beam rifle. Much like the Strike Freedoms, and kind of like the Freedoms I guess, you have a scope, you have a couple of different colours, you've got the metal, a white and obviously a red to match with the kit itself, but it's got a swinging foregrip, which you probably never use, but the scope. Unfortunately, once again, no camera sticker. The shield was made up of about a half a dozen different pieces, 5 or 6, and it's really cool. I don't get what that little side piece is maybe a looking hole. Yeah, not sure. But you do get 2 points to hold it with. You get a rotating attachment for the back of the arm, which is useless. It comes off if you look at it wrong. And you also get a handle grip, which unfortunately doesn't rotate around and move. You need to pull it out, and it's got 3 different pegs for different positioning up and down the shield. But it can be put into the RG hand, and you can get him to hold it. It's just a bit difficult. That was probably one of my most difficult things when I was trying to pose this guy up. As for the hands, you got one open expressive hand. You get one trigger hand, and you get 2 of the real grade hands, which, let's face it, nobody ever likes, but on these real grade, early real grade kits you do need to use them. You then also get the 2 closed fists, semi-closed fists, which are on the kit. Now, I should point out though, when changing hands, be ultra cautious. Those wrist cuffs will come off and you'll lose them, those tiny grey pieces. Alright, let's talk about the next accessory, which is the biggest one, the backpack itself. Because the kit is the kit, and then this is literally another half hour, 40 minutes of building on its own. Nearly an hour. It's got so much detail, multiple pieces, each thruster moves. The wings move. Just be careful when moving the thrusters around though, because you can bump the flaps either side of them and knock them out. They will just come off. Lots of colour separation, articulation. You got a couple of weapons like laser turrets on the front there, cannons that will go up and down. Now the wings, they're on a peg and swivel, so you can turn them up. Then you rotate them backwards. Now slide them down and then push them in. That's how they lock in place. Now the one frustrating thing that was also mentioned by others was the kit itself on the backpack part. It never, there you go, so you can knock those flaps out. They just push back in though. It kind of, because it's all sandwiched together like that, you can't ever get it to fully line up. I think if I was painting this, I would glue the edges so everything, and there goes a yellow tip, they fall off, they're definitely getting glued. The tips of the wings and the tips of the top fins here, they just come off terribly all the time. So loose. I would probably glue this sections together, because the panels don't meet properly. No matter how much nub removal, sanding, pushing I did, they just don't line up quite right. That is where the peg where you position the Justice when it's standing on top. It drops down and then slides back. It's actually like not just a peg, it's a little hook. And for the final, when you want to stand him on top, you need to open it up. There you go. When I was building this, I wasn't sure where I was going with all of this kind of... I knew there was a sliding gimmick to it, the way it was positioned with all the internals. It's an engineering feat. Bandai really thought about this when they were designing this. It's a shame the waist joint didn't have as much thought put into it. So you can see there, that's the holding stand for the backpack with the action-based joint on top, and then you use this little piece as well. Underneath, you've got a arm that swings down from underneath it, and that's what actually connects into the backpack. But if you want to actually stand it on its own, I'm guessing you could without, displaying the Justice with it. Don't know why you would, but you could. It locks in, that arm swings out from underneath, locks into the back of the Justice, and then that stand and action-based connector hold the backpack up so you can stand it on the ground. Or you can just connect it to an action base and have it flying in the air with it, which I'll show you later. Alright, here he is with the action base stand and connector on, spinning around, fully loaded up. That shield was a pain to pose, but the rifle, not as much. And you can get him to stand with that backpack on. Like I said, would have been better if it was molded in clear. I will say this guy has plenty of posing potential, but seriously, he needs to be on an action base. Now, let's take a quick look at some articulation and color. The colors are pretty accurate on this kit. As you can see from the decal sheet, I only used the eye sticker. I didn't put any of the joint ones because I'll probably end up painting the frame on this one. But where it does fall down a bit is the cameras. So that big camera at the front, or sensor, and on the back, they're meant to be blue. So if you want it to be color accurate, you either need to put something metallic blue behind it or spray clear blue over the clear parts. Now, if we talk about the articulation, the head can look down. You can look up. Now the head was pretty loose on mine. It will come off a lot, but that also made it easier when putting the pack in position to just take the head off, put the pack on, and then position the head down over it. It'll turn all the way around. It's a very interesting looking head. I've never seen such a big, like a horn on it. That's bigger than the unicorns, I think. The waist is a huge problem. I don't know what to tell you about the waist, guys. It comes apart so easily, like my Strike Freedom did, and I'm going to assume the Freedom. I think it's probably the worst aspect of this kit. Not a whole lot of articulation in there, obviously, but it'll just come apart at the drop of a hat. Good and a bad thing. Good thing was sometimes I just wanted to deal with the bottom or the top half, so I separated them. But for posing, the arms can go all the way around. Just be careful when turning them. Don't stress mark the plastic. The shoulders can go up out of the way quite a bit. And then you can raise them up over shoulder height. Or if you pull out the little shoulder gimmick part and then raise up again, you can go nearly vertical. So it's a good range of motion in that. And they do a 90-degree bend. So that shoulder gimmick you can pull out, and that'll help with some posing. And it also has a little flap on top like an armor cover, which is really, that's kind of cool. So you can either expose the frame or not expose the frame depending on what you want. Now I guess kind of not really articulation, but being an older real grade, one of the only gimmicks on it itself it has is the cockpit opens just below the head there. Now there's no actual cockpit, it's just a gap in the frame when you look at it in detail, but still kind of cool. You can position your Athrun figure standing out of there. In terms of the side skirts, that's your beam saber storage. Now they will swivel around a little and go up a little, but obviously with side skirts, like these are huge, but they don't really go too far. You can go back, you can go forward, but not really what you want to do, I guess, with them. They do look cool holding the beam sabers. The front skirts will just rotate up, they're on a peg as well. And the butt flap. That kind of turns a little. It doesn't really come up too far, but you can turn it if you wanted to get the legs back in one side or the other. The ankle guards, flimsy, terrible, but they do the job. That's just they're attached at the back of the frame on two little pegs, I guess. So they'll move around a little, but they're very flimsy feeling, so I wouldn't push them too hard. The feet themselves, the ankles, are pretty articulated. You can go side to side, turn them all the way around. The feet have a good range of motion. They can basically bend up or down. There is the toe tip. I think I need to cut mine out a bit more. It is meant to point up and separate a bit of the armor on the foot, but one side does it, one side doesn't. It's got that great RG armor separation, as well as when you rotate the legs carefully, obviously. You can see that it'll go all the way back, it'll bend back on itself, and if you move the skirt up, it can go all the way at the front. Those knee armor covers did come off a bit, but overall, pretty solid, not too bad. And did I mention, he'll come apart pretty easily at the waist, even with clicking it in. He can do the splits if you move the side skirts up a little, not the whole way, but most of the way. So just looking underneath, if you pull one of the legs off, you can see the waist. It's the standard earlier real grade waist. A little bit of rotation and motion. Mainly it's the legs doing the turning and pivoting and stuff though, not the waist joint itself. Side by side comparison, I don't have a Freedom, but I have the Strike Freedom. So yeah, as you can see, they're standing on their own, even for such backpack heavy kits, older real grades. I should point out my Strike Freedom is painted. That's not a standard RG Strike Freedom. I painted the frame. I changed, I think it was the navy for black. Side by side. They're a stunning pair, guys. Like, the thing about SEED is it was all about the backpacks. So, for most of the kit, most of the mobile suits. So these two are a great pair side by side because they're such, I'm not a Freedom fan, but I like the Strike Freedom, particularly in its like burst mode. So here he is up on an action base, which is where you really want him in a flying pose with the pack down. So if you use the pack down, you have to go from underneath and use the standard action base connector point under the waist, which is more difficult than you'd think, but well worth it once you get it. Looking from below as he spins, now you can see with the pack up in its flying pose, it takes up a lot of shelf space. I won't lie, for a 1/144 with a backpack this big. But that's how the action base connector works. And you can see it's got the extra piece attaching to the back to support it. Looking at these two in this pose makes me think, God damn, I want more SEED kits. But if you're a SEED fan, definitely get the Freedom, the Destiny, the Justice, the Strike Freedom, the Strike, and now the newly released Force Impulse. Ooh, and then the Sword Impulse has been announced as well. Great display for a SEED shelf in your cabinets. But if you put in a little effort like I did on the Strike Freedom, which I will on the Justice as well, and I painted my Strike Gundam in a deactive mode colour scheme, they're just great fun little kits. Here he is standing on the glider. It's a little tricky getting him there, but once you can turn this thing sideways, upside down, and he'll stay attached to it no matter what you're doing. So he's holding those awesome Basil beam blades as well. I guess they're beam daggers, I would say. Now, that hole on the back skirt is actually for the rifle to attach, but I didn't feel it was stable. This is probably more the pose you would have it flying in, so all the accessories are on the kit, holding the rifle and the shield, and that's where you usually see him in the show. Alright guys, that brings me to the end of this review. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I wasn't sure when I was building this kit how I'd end up liking it or not, but in the end, I would say pick this up. It's actually a great kit for an older real grade kit. Yes, it has a couple of the symptoms of early real grade syndrome, like the waist joint, the hands, but overall, I think this is a great kit, particularly if you're a SEED fan and if you like RG kits. It's not a mini master grade like the newer ones, but it's still pretty good, and it'll look great with some paint and stickers on it. Big thanks to Hobbyco for supporting this review. Remember to check out their link in the description below and their website. If you haven't seen the gram, I did put up some pics of a recent visit to the CBD shop in Sydney, and it's a great place to check out. Alright, thanks for joining me guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.